From EDIH Connect, from the international unit. I am here to take you through the international part of this seminar. Now, of course, we have been very and the needy way that digital innovation hub functions and develops in Europe. We think this whole method is so good that we think that we can share it with the rest of the world. So I think that we have been trying to start working with ways. In particularly, what we have been doing in our that deals with external affairs is to start working on an African EU digital innovation bridge, which is, I think, something which I think we can all join up and support. This initiative was in the beginning a German initiative, and it came in together with the French administration too, and we joined up. So we had a call, and that call ended up in a number of very good projects that we are now starting to implement. So that's one part of the Nanko Madhu here is from AfriLab, who is one of the partners in this bridge between Africa and the European Union. We'll take you also through a little bit her discussion. I also have my dear colleague Carlos Oliveira from our delegation in Brazil.
Hello, good morning to everybody. My greetings to all the attendants. I'll be speaking in a little while.
May I suggest to invite Nanko to do her presentation while Eric is back?
Okay, hello everyone. Nanko Madhu here from Nigeria. I'm happy to be here to be presenting and talking to you about one, my organization, and two, about the African European Digital Innovation Hub Bridge. Next slide, mate. So AfriLabs, the organization I work for, is a network organization that supports over 200 innovation hubs across Africa. We're currently in 48 countries, and what we basically do is support the organizations to ensure that they are, successful, and they're able to support their the SMEs and startups under them in the way that they should, and ensure that they're successful and they're investable. We do this support through capacity building and a couple of other elements that I'll be talking to in the next slide. Next slide, please. So we engage with, the ecosystem, the community, and our partners in 6 key ways. The first is capacity building, where we host a series of interventions from trainings to webinars, workshops, just to ensure that we give, the hubs the requisite information, resources, and skill to ensure that they are successful. We also carry out events where, we're conveners. We carry out events where we convey partners, our hub, the key stakeholders within the ecosystem to a place to ensure that, there's networking, there's collaboration and partnership. One of such events is our annual gathering. It's called the AfriLabs Annual Gathering, where we bring all of these people together. This year, we're hosting it in Marrakesh, Morocco, and you're all invited to be there. Partnerships, we also foster partnerships between our hubs and partners. So we create a platform where, the partners that we have access to, the hubs are able to, we are able to link the hubs with them to do work and to collaborate on mini projects. We also have the talent and research, where we carry out series of research to to ensure that we have data-driven, intervention, to ensure that we have like data that backs, whatever decision making that needs to be done, and we do that in collaboration with our hubs. We do policy advocacy. Most of us that have interacted with the African ecosystem will be, may know that the African ecosystem, the policies that surround the African ecosystem are not quite friendly to, hub managed to the hubs and to the SMEs. So we try to carry out advocacy to ensure that whatever policies that are being put in place creates an enabling environment for the hubs and the startups under them. Finally, we have platforms. We create platforms for hubs. So one of such platforms is our current Catalyst platform, where we bring together the startups that are under the hubs within our network and link them up with investors. So on the platform, we have the investors, and then we have the startups, and then they're able to interact and with the goal of getting the startups, getting investments for the startups. Yeah, next slide, please. So this just shows our spread. Like I said earlier, we're in about 240. We have 240 hubs in 48 countries and counting. So just to show our spread. Next slide, please. So with regards to EDIH, EDIH basically stands for the Africa European Digital Innovation Hub Bridge. Yeah. Over the years, it's been clear that there needs to be synergy or collaboration between the European and the African ecosystems to foster partnerships, to foster collaboration, knowledge sharing, etc. Hence, the EDIH was, created. The EDIH program was created with a vision to shape a common African and European innovation and startup ecosystem, and to strengthen the Pan-African. So first of all, to focus on the African countries or the African ecosystem, the African ecosystem, to ensure that they're working together, they're working in synergy, and then extending that cross continent to Europe, and focusing on digital innovation, for the startups, the SMEs under the hubs. Yeah, the objective is to strengthen a common African-European digital innovation, like I kind of mentioned. So how do we do that? Is by supporting local digital innovation and startup ecosystem in Africa, and then using that to facilitate the collaboration between the two continents. We leverage. Hello, are you still there? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, we leverage on our combined expertise and experience. So the African ecosystem, what are your experiences? What are your expertise? And then the European ecosystem, what are the experiences? What are the expertise? Just leveraging on those expertise to and network consortium to move forward. We also strive to develop and strengthen key infrastructures such as the Pan-African network, like I said, and other infrastructure that facilitates collaboration, knowledge sharing, etc. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just showing you the graphical representation of what I've been saying. You have the African ecosystem on your left, and you have the European ecosystem on your right. And looking at this, what are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What do these networks look like? And how can you form synergies across? How can you mirror one to another? What is working in Africa? How can that be, transmitted to the European ecosystem? And what is working in the European ecosystem? How can that be replicated in the African ecosystem? And then just building the bridge across the two ecosystems. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the program is being implemented by a number of very, highly reputable organizations. We have the GIZ, we have ABAN, the African, the AfriLabs, Digital Africa, we have the AFD, Expertise Brands, and all these, they're both made up of European and African experts or expert organizations working on this. I'm going to pause here and see, have Lars take over and I'll answer questions when questions come in. Thank you.
Hi, I will jump in for a while because Lars Erik is struggling to connect. Okay, so I would like to ask Carlos Oliveira to start his presentation while we try to have Lars Erik back. Carlos, please.
Yes, I think that you can see me. I'm gonna switch off into the sharing, and you should see the presentation in a second. Okay, well, I hope that now you can all see the presentation. Should be appearing in the screen. I'm coming from Brazil, and actually I had been living here since 2017, and it's a great pleasure for me to give a bit of a perspective about what is taking place here. So good morning to those in Brazil, and good afternoon for most of you that are in Europe. I mean, from my stay here, I got the chance of actually getting more acquainted with the specificity of Brazil, but also about the great potential and opportunities to strengthen the cooperation between EU and Brazil, especially in the topics around digital transformation. Perhaps most of you already know, but I think it's still worth recalling that we are talking about the 8th largest economy in the world, that has actually borders with all its South American neighbors, with the exception of Chile, and that has also EU as its second largest trading partner, which is also the largest investor. And in a country that has a very interesting and dynamic innovation ecosystem, which also holds an enormous potential that would be even further enlarged with the prospect of the announced EU-Mercosur agreement. I mean, we haven't started working with Brazil now. As a matter of fact, since the launch of the EU-Brazil strategic partnership, that we have been working very strongly. We launched 4 joint calls that funded more than 20 projects, and we are talking about more than 200 participants across the 2 sides of the Atlantic, representing an overall investment of 50 million euros. Jointly funded by the European Union and also by Brazil, that has been actually supporting the Brazilian participants. I mean, if you look at the topics that appear in the slide over here in the right side of the slide, you have the topics that are very much the things that we have been talking about. We have projects about applications of HPC and renewable energies, about water management in agriculture, about advanced manufacturing, 5G in sparsely populated areas, also the use of cloud computing in smart metering. This is just, let's say, a glimpse of the possibilities that we have already been exploring. And we also have these projects looking not only at research, technological research aspects, but also exploring also innovative potential of these, notably testing business models, acceptance of these technologies, also the scaling effect, because you're talking about a country that has no comparison with any other European country. Another thing that I would like to say a few words is also about Bella. Bella is the cable that is now connecting directly Europe to South America, and more specifically arriving in Fortaleza, the closest place of Europe in South America. And indeed, this is actually a wealth of opportunities that are being opened for connecting South America and Europe, not only for the typical applications that we tend to think, but especially as a potential to develop further the digital economy. It's probably worth recalling that at the moment, the traffic that goes between South America and Europe goes through US, and eventually it crosses the Atlantic to UK, and finally it arrives to the European Union. And this actually limits enormously many of the applications that we are discussing, including those that have a lot to do with the topics that we have been talking. Let me say a little bit, few words about what we have been doing in terms of aligning ideas about sharing policies around the key topics of digital information. I mean, we have had, since the last 10 years, yearly dialogues or meetings between Brazilian authorities and especially DG Connect, but more generally, the whole representatives of the different DGs in the Commission. And the topics that we are seeing are also topics that we have been talking about. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, HPC, cybersecurity, also the applications in the areas of digitization of industry 4.0, agriculture 4.0. You know that Brazil has one of the most advanced agriculture systems in the world, smart cities and smart mobility, digital government. This is just an idea, and all these activities have been strongly supported by the Brazilian authorities, notably through co-funding arrangements involving funding agencies like RNP, but also new perspectives with new organizations like CONFAP and EMBRAPI. Let me just perhaps, to complete the overall picture, say a little bit about what is taking place in Brazil. Brazil has launched quite, in the recent years, a very ambitious strategy for digital transformation. It includes aspects such as IoT generalization, exploring the potential of 5G in vertical applications like manufacturing and agriculture, but also in areas of common interest such as smart cities, health applications, and of course, a topic that has been very much mentioned over the last few days is government. We are talking not only about government to the provision of public services, like the ones that we talk when we refer to health, but also making government services more efficient. Open data, digital signatures, which is something of great potential in the context of the EU-Mercosur for everything that has to do with goods that are going to be exported and have to be accompanied by a certificate of origin. This gives, let's say, an idea of what is being offered. Something very important is how this is being deployed. It's very much around the idea of a partnership involving key organizations in Brazil, such as, for instance, the SIBRAI, which is an organization very much focused on SMEs, with a wide network covering the whole world, but also EMBRAPA. You can see here actually a reference to a project that was funded by both Brazil and Europe on smart irrigation. Also EMBRAPI for industrial innovation and manufacturing. And of course, RNP, that is also one of the elements, one of the entities that is basically the Brazilian equivalent of G1, which is being the main contributor for the joint endeavor that has been the submarine cable that I was speaking a few minutes ago. Another element that is very important is also a myriad of companies, including large companies such as many European companies with names that we are familiar with, from Siemens, SAP, car manufacturers like BMW, Mercedes, Renault, Volkswagen, but also companies in a more industrial area like ENGIE, Bosch, Bayer, across all areas, that are bringing with them a large group of SMEs. I would say hundreds of, probably can even talk about thousands of SMEs, not only SMEs that come from Brazil, but also a very large number of SMEs that are originally SMEs that come from Europe, that are participating and established in the development of this ecosystem. Therefore, we are indeed talking about huge potential for the development of valuable partnerships between the European digital innovation hubs and their Brazilian counterparts in the coming months. And perhaps as a final message, I would like to say that we see this presentation as an opportunity to stimulate the contacts between Brazilian and European actors in order to really materialize this potential for collaboration that is of mutual interest in the context of the development of digital economy across the world, and especially in Europe. Back to the moderator, or eventually to Julien, because I think that he's ready to get in. I'll come back later for the conversation.
Thanks, Carlos. I don't know if I jump in. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good morning for us in Canada. I think the major difference with Brazil and Nigeria is we have a lot of snow right now, more than Brazil and in Nigeria, definitely. I will just share my screen to present where we are at what we are at Scale AI. What we are basically is we are a supercluster. The government of Canada has decided to create 5 innovation superclusters back in 2018. The goal was really to help Canada grow in some areas where Canada was lagging behind, or in terms of resources, or in terms of innovation. And as Scale AI, we won one of the 5 superclusters. We are based in Montreal and we operate across Canada. And we are an investment hub focused on AI applied to supply chain. So our focus is really artificial intelligence. Canada is strong in artificial intelligence, and Montreal inside Canada is one of the strongholds of artificial intelligence. And we have decided to focus on one specific area, which is supply chains, because we think supply chains, and the pandemic has definitely shown that, has a lot of connection to be established. Connecting supply chains is critical. There's a lot of innovation there, a lot of data, and AI can be really applied to supply chains. So basically, in terms of funding, we have $283 million of Canadian dollars to deploy in 4 years. Most of them coming from the federal government, but a part of support coming from the government of Quebec, chipping in to be sure that we have the support to projects. Basically, we invest in projects. I will come back to that later. To help and diminish the cost of growing projects in AI and supply chain. So our mandate is very simple, and I think it's really something dollars basically will be delivered to these 3 key programs. Most of them going to industrial projects, but significant amount going to workforce training and support to accelerators and incubators. Final slide, just to show that the way we think about deployment of AI and where we want to be part of it as an innovation hub. One is definitely a lot of companies have just a very preliminary understanding of AI. We have deployed program in training to be sure that we can help companies think about AI. Of course, if they go to stage 2, they can explore opportunities, and we have also programs deployed to help companies think more about what they could do in AI, how they could apply AI to their product, their economic sector, their vertical. Third stage is really about making a blueprint to be sure before deploying an AI solution you have the right data, the right infrastructure, and that's really about we fund that at Scale AI under our Scale AI industrial project envelope. Obviously, at stage 4, you can deploy an AI project, and that's where we help, as I said, by paying 40% or 50% of the total cost of your project, depending where you are located. And finally, after you implement your software, it's not over. Because you need to manage change management, you need to work on improvement of the software, and so we are here also to help. So at Scale AI, our goal is really to help companies all across the value chain, from the preliminary understanding to deployment of solution, and to be sure we accelerate innovation in the AI supply chain environment. When I had to think about ideas of collaboration with hubs in Europe, basically I would, for sure, knowledge sharing on AI and solution based on AI is definitely a must-have. There's a lot of innovation out there, and the more we share knowledge, can be at research level, can be at more operational level, that's best. Startups are also very important. We know that innovation will come from startups, most of it is. So creation of a network of AI-focused startups in both sides of the Atlantic, and of course with other countries, could be great, because any startup wants to have access to customers. Export is a big thing for every part of the country. So creation of a network of AI-focused startups would be great. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you. Lars seems to be coming back, so I think it's just on time. Lars?
Much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Actually, there was a mistake because I think somebody connected on my link. So I was kicked out, but no big deal. Okay, good. Thank you very much. I have not been listening, but I've been reading your good presentation before. So I can just jump over now to Carlos then, who is the last person on our list and who will give his presentation.
Carlos presented already.
I already made my presentation, Lars. So you can jump into the debate.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so then I have renewed I'm coming back, but now I think there will be questions to us. So Ramona, are you with us? Yes, and you will be reading the questions and answers.
Indeed.
So I'll be finishing off the meeting in the very, very end. Sorry about that.
There are a couple of questions for our panelists. So let's start from the most popular one. So has the European Commission any priority in which area should the EDIH establish international cooperation?
Should I take that answer because I've not been talking a lot to this? I think actually I think yes and no. I think there are two things here. First of all, I think with the project that we've had, different subjects, so we have everything from blockchain to artificial intelligence to pure multi-disciplinary cooperation. And I think the main objective here was geographical and not thematic. But that being said, some of the proposals has been more geographical. I think yes, in the sense that there are issues where we would like to see, of course, more cooperation international. But that question, I think, is not really for me to answer, but more my colleagues who, like Anne-Marie Sassens and the people that work with European digital innovation hubs. One thing that I just wanted to say is the fact that, of course, it's a question also to you. I turn on back it to our digital innovation hubs in Europe and ask you, what do you think we should cooperate with, and which countries do you think we should cooperate? Because, of course, we had the good idea to have this cooperation with Africa, because Africa really matters for our external dimension. We would like to interchange with the vibrant community that we have in Africa. But we have also vibrant communities around the world. And I think that it would be also a little bit on the call. What would you like to do? And I mean, hopefully you got my email. You got the email of Anne-Marie, obviously. And if you can give us ideas, thoughts, I think we should definitely take this into consideration in the future. Also, I think what is really important is that we bring in more and more international participants in our European digital innovation hubs projects. We would really like to see many of the countries around the world to join up with us on this. So I think those are the answers. Maybe it is not a one clear answer, but it gives you a little bit something to think about. Thank you.
Great. We can go with another question, if you'd like. So another participant is asking if is there any special actions on the internationalization of SMEs within the EDIH program that could benefit from a partnership with Brazil?
Obviously, the answer or the one that should answer that is, of course, our friend.
Well, can you hear me? I think that actually I even recognize Wenderson, that I think is the author of the question. I mean, at the moment, and allow me also to say a few words on behalf of the previous question. I mean, when we talk about many of the areas that are being addressed by the digital innovation hubs, many of them are highly multidisciplinary. If we talk about smart cities, if we talk about many areas of application, they bring together a wealth of technological environments. SMEs are especially important because one of the priorities of the Commission, not only of the digital innovation hubs, but of the Commission policies as a whole, is very much also to promote the internationalization of SMEs. And of course, even if this is not yet, let's say, the first step when we talk about the digital innovation hubs, because first you need to have the digital innovation hubs in Europe fully operational and establishing their whole effective networking. Unquestionably, the issues of internationalization of SMEs will come through. And we have already a very good signs from the contacts that we had with European companies established in Brazil, but also with their network of SMEs that are operating in many different areas, from automotive to energy to city management, just to give a few examples. Over to you.
Thank you, Ramona. More questions? I mean, I think we can take a few more. I don't know. I've been so short in it.
There are plenty of questions.
Okay.
So another one could be: does the European Commission is pushing replication of the European projects, like large-scale pilots in Africa using an African EDIH, maybe?
Yes, I mean, of course, it's our African friends. Is Nanko? Yeah, you here? Nanko,
Yes.
are you still here with us? Yeah.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, sure. So, does the European Commission is pushing a replication of the European projects in Africa using an African EDIH?
Oh, yeah, so it's not. So I get the thinking, yeah, but it's not replication, yeah, because before these programs come, there's usually some research into what is on ground, what is working, out of the programs that have been rolled out, what is working. So I won't call it a replication. I will call it just a standalone project that is improving on whatever that is already on ground. Okay, and taking the lessons learned, building on that, and coming up with more strategies that still achieve the same result, yeah, but using different models and approaches. So I wouldn't say it's a replication, yeah.
All right. I think if I fill in on that, what Nanko said, it's not the objective of our project right now. Bear you in mind of all that are out there. Don't forget that African countries, the whole continent actually, partners in your consortia. And I think that is a possibility also in the future. So don't forget that possibility. Yeah? Because Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe actually allows us to do this. Huh? Okay.
Lars, may I just add something, but I don't want to prevent Julian from saying something because he hasn't had the chance of commenting. But anyway, after him, I would like to add something about this replication issue.
Sure. I mean,
Julian, do you want to say something, or can I go through?
No, go through, Carlos.
Okay, just wanted to say the following regarding this issue of replication. We are not talking exactly of transplanting the experience from Europe to whichever country, because this never works. But to give an example, for instance, the size and the scale and actually the conditions of use of Brazil are very specific. We had been able, for instance, in 5G to develop specific technological approaches to allow a more efficient deployment of 5G, because we are talking about very sparsely populated areas. It's a huge country, probably comparable to Canada, by the way, with also the same kind of issues in terms of distribution of population, and actually with the involvement of the Swedish subsidiary of the Brazilian subsidiary of Ericsson, we had a project that has been pushing forward with new approaches in this area. but also in areas like, for instance, connected vehicles, which is also an area with great interest. We have been trying, because we are talking about a completely different landscape, not only geographically, but also in terms of the overall context of use, with different a different networking of companies, a different logistical chains. And this has been also an area where we had been trying to expand the experience that has been developed in Europe in these areas. Back to you, Lars or Julien, as you find more suitable.
Thank you very much. I think we can take one more question now before we end.
Yes. There is one specifically for Julian, asking to which extent do you ensure that the AI development through Scale AI is aligned with the ethical principles and values of Europe, I imagine?
Well, for every country, I mean, ethics in AI is a big subject, obviously. Of course, in Montreal, Yoshua Benjo and amongst other, we have the Montreal Declaration for AI Principles. So obviously, based in Montreal, we force ourselves, in a sense, to follow the principle of this declaration. I would say, more importantly, meaning speaking about logistics and supply chain, we are not one of the most. We are here to help people spend less resources. So in a sense, we try to optimize the use of resources, whether human resources or whether, of course, products and services and resources all along the supply chain. So we are not something very contentious in a sense, meaning we are not working on military application, we are not working on cyber security or whatever. We are just working on helping supply chains being more efficient. But obviously, we follow in part of the principle behind Scale AI and our engagement with the federal government of Canada. We follow the principle of the Declaration of Montreal in terms of ethics in AI. So.
All right, thank you very much. I think, what hour is it right now? We have 41. I mean, if we want to, we could have another question, but I think if there's no one who really wants to ask another question, I think we are arriving at the end of this session. I would like to thank, of course, Nanko, and I would like to ask, dire merci, je crois qu'au Québec, on parle français, and which I think you should be very proud of in Quebec. And then, obviously, Carlos, my dear Carlos, who is doing such a fantastic job for the European Commission in Brazil. So thank you so much for joining this session. I hope it's been inspiring for the people that have been connecting with us. I think my invitation to all of you to think about how to incorporate more of our international partners in projects in the future, in your project proposals, would be really helpful. I think we will probably have more calls which will be directed towards to our colleagues around the world. I see, of course, most of the countries that you represent here as very important partners for the European Union in keeping the whole digital transformation human-centric and democratic, because I think that's a very important buzzword that we have in the European Union right now. And I'm sure that Canada is one of the ones that would be a very natural partner to us. So would Nigeria and most of the African countries, and hopefully also Brazil. So thank you so much for joining this session. I don't know if anybody wants to say something in the end of the session here. I think we can close this, and I would again like to thank the organizers of this session, and thank you for bringing this outside the European Union into the world, and hope to see you soon again. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. It was a pleasure to be with you, and I look forward to keep the contacts with my speakers in this session. My compliments to everybody, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Au revoir. À une prochaine occasion.